All right, welcome back. I am doing my third in this series about doing operations with radicals. And this one I just want to focus in on multiplying binomial radicals. And I will talk to you about that in just a second. I just had a Gmail pop up and it's not letting me write. There we go. Multiply binomial radicals. Okay, and so what I did in the last video, we did multiply in the last video. The difference was I really focused on multiplying monomial radicals together, so just single term radicals. Now I'm going to talk about how do you put radicals together that are in two terms like this. And this came straight out of the IXL work that I assigned you this summer. And this is an example problem that was encountered. So remember, this was a while ago, but I know as soon as I say it, you're going to go, oh, I know how to do that. Okay? Anytime you multiply two binomials together, there's a special acronym that we use. Do you remember FOIL? And I hope you do. FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And that's what you're going to do here. These are not like terms. You can't take 2 and subtract the square root of 3 from it. They're not like terms. And these certainly aren't like terms. So there's no way that you can simplify within the parentheses. So the only other thing you can do is perform the multiplication that it's asking you to do. Those two parentheses butted up against each other. Say, hey, multiply me. Well, the way you multiply them is because you have two binomials, you're going to FOIL. And so we'll start with first. 2 times 3, 6. Let's go to outer. 2 times the square root of 2. 2 times square root of 2, exactly. Negative square root of 3 times 3. Well, that's negative 3 times the square root of 3. So this sign that's right here in front of the square root of 3 is the sign of that square root of 3. So that tracks. When you're multiplying the square root of 3 times 3, it's negative. So that means that term becomes negative. And then last, negative square root of 3 times positive square root of 2. That's negative square root of 6. Okay, so remember, when you multiply radicals, you don't have to worry about whether or not they're the same number. You don't. You just multiply them and look to see if you can simplify anything. Are there like terms anywhere? Are there things that you can put together? And in this particular case, this is the only term. The 6 is the only constant term that's up there. There's a 2 times the square root of 2. There's a negative 3 times the square root of 3. And there's a negative square root of 6. Guess what, guys? None of these are like terms. So we're just going to leave our answer just like this. There's nothing to simplify. Okay? So that's how you do that. FOIL. Don't forget about these basic things that we've learned. Now, what if you get a monomial times a binomial? Okay, well, this is not FOIL. You don't FOIL here because it's not a binomial times a binomial. Okay, you are just going to simply distribute. Square root of 5 times 5 is 5 times the square root of 5. We put the coefficient out in front of the radical. It makes it a little easier. Sometimes if we write it behind it and we're a little lazy with our lines, then we're not really sure if this 5 is under the radical or not. So the safest thing to do with a coefficient that's not under a radical, put it out front. That's really the safest thing. All right, let's continue distributing. We're going to do the square root of 5 times negative square root of 3. That's negative square root of 15. I can't simplify either of these, and so, and they aren't like, and I can't subtract them, so I'm finished. Okay? All right, now let's get to a clean sheet. I want to talk to you about something called a conjugate. This is going to come up in the next video. And I'm going to show you how to handle what happens if I have a radical in the denominator. And I'm going to show you how to handle that, okay? But first I need to do a little mini lesson on conjugates, okay? Special name, it's not hard, I promise. So here, let me just make something up. Let's say I have this radical term here, this radical expression, 2 minus the square root of 3. Its conjugate would be the same exact thing except a plus sign. It'd have an opposite sign. So watch what happens when we FOIL these. Okay, so I gave you this. The conjugate is always the identical thing except for this different sign in the middle. And we're going to do FOIL. All right, so let's do first. 2 times 2, 4. Outer, 2 times the square root of 3. Okay, 2 times square root of 3. Inner, 2 times negative square root of 3. So that becomes negative 2 times the square root of 3. And then negative square root of 3 times positive square root of 3. That becomes the square root of 9. Okay, now that's special, so we're going to circle that because guess what, guys? That can be simplified. Okay, so I'm going to drop down my 4. Look what happens right here. It's incredible. It happens every time you multiply conjugates together. They cancel. We have the same radical, square root of 3, square root of 3, and this is take positive 2 and take away 2 from it. Well, you got nothing left. 2 minus 2 is 0. You have 0 square roots of 3, which means you got nothing there. They cancel out. And then we'll drop down the minus sign, and then we're going to simplify the square root of 9, and we're going to call that 3. And then we're going to do this math. 4 minus 3 is 1. Let's try another one. Okay? You can do this on your own. You can make up your own radical expression and figure this out. So this time, let me do a positive one. Let's do 1 plus 2 times the square root of 5. Okay? So that's what I'm giving you. So now what I want you to do is multiply to it its conjugate. Remember, the conjugate is exactly what you see there, except there's a different sign in the middle. And then you're going to FOIL. Okay? So let's start with first. 1 times 1. 1. And then outer. 1 times negative 2 times the square root of 5. Well, that's negative 2 times the square root of 5. Inner. 2 times the square root of 5 times 1. That's positive 2 times the square root of 5. And then last, positive 2 times the square root of 5 times negative 2 times the square root of 5. Well, positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 25. Whoa, that's special, so we're going to circle that. All right, so I'm going to drop down my 1. That's a constant that I'm tracking down. What's special? What happened here in the middle? Do you see it? Yep, they canceled out. They both have the same radical, square root of 5, but they have opposite numbers in front of the radical, and opposites always add up to be 0. So negative 2 and positive 2 is 0. And then we're going to drop down the minus sign, drop down the 4. 4 times the square root of 25. Well, what's the square root of 25? Well, it is the number 5. So that can be simplified right here. So I've got 1 minus 20, which is negative 19, and there's my answer. Okay? Now, I've done 2 of these with you. I'm hoping that you're seeing a pattern. Does it kind of remind you of when we did x plus 2 and x minus 2? See how they're identical? And we created a shortcut. We said, oh, I don't have to FOIL. I can do FLA. I already know outer and inner are going to cancel, so I don't need to do outer and inner if I already know they're going to cancel, and I'll just get x squared minus 4. That is, in essence, what we're doing here. So if I do kind of a simple one, and the conjugate would be 1 minus the square root of 2, I already know. I've done 2 problems. Outer and inner are going to cancel. So I can literally just do FLA. 1 times 1 is 1. Outer and inner are going to cancel. Square root of 2 times negative square root of 2, that's negative square root of 4. 1 minus 2 is negative 1, and I'm done. So that's kind of a quite a bit faster way of doing it. Okay, I'm at my 10-minute mark. That's all I got for you for multiplying. So hopefully that helped. If I confused you, write me, call me, text me, let me know where I messed you up, where you missed it. Okay, glad to help. Always happy to help you guys. All right, take care.